with a blend of both human capital, talent consulting domain and the corporate. He is a renowned HR professional associated with Bennett Coleman, as I've told you. He has a hands-on experience across diverse companies, MNCs India, startup across diverse industries, FMCG, auto, media, and etc. So I would like request Mr. Kohli to start the webinar without further ado and grace us their valuable insights on the topic. If anyone have queries and during the session, please type in the chat box. Mr. Kohli would like to answer all your queries, all your questions on the points, and we'll bring up them during the presentation. We would have a small presentation which Mr. Suren would be accommodating and collating with the same. I would request Mr. Kohli to take over the webinar. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sushant. Thanks, Suren, for having me here.
Yeah.
And thank you all for joining in. I know weekends are meant for personal time, but I think it's also a time for everyone to invest in their growth. So thanks for joining me in. This is going to be a conversation. So most of my slides are stuff where I'll be actually asking your inputs rather than just sharing mine. So that's how the flow will be. So feel free to unmute and respond in between. Starting with why did I choose this topic? Investing in candidate selection. I have given fair number of interviews across my career for about 14 years, and I've experienced a variety of interviewing techniques and assessment procedures followed by organizations. And what I've realized is, there's hardly any consistency. Some are good, but those would be probably about 5 or 10% of the selection or interviews that I've gone through. Rest all made me wonder as to how is it possible that they're not realizing that they're missing out on getting the right candidates using these procedures. So that's how the topic came to my mind when Sushant brought up the conversation of doing this webinar, and that's how we are here. Suren, if you could just put up the first slide.
Sure, sir. Wait a minute, please.
Great.
Yes, sir.
Great. So like I promised, I'll not be doing all the speaking. I'm sure all of you've either given interviews, taken interviews, or facilitated interviews. And you've been responsible for or have been the, a participant in the process of hiring. So what do you think is the true cost of a bad hire? Because, the whole reason for having this topic of investing in candidate selection is there's an ROI, or there's a cost to not having a good candidate selected. So what do you think is the true cost of a bad hire? What all constitutes in a the cost that a company bears if they hire wrong? People, feel free to unmute and share your thoughts.
Any questions, if you can want to ask, put them in the chat box.
But you can share your thoughts by unmuting and that thing.
Okay.
I'd actually like to hear people's voices. It makes it a two-way conversation. And I think with a small group of 60, we can manage.
Yeah.
Anyone?
So, hi, Girish, this is Sanjana here.
Hey.
Hi. So, I have joined the webinar for the first time today. And I am working as a recruiter in one of the healthcare company. So yeah, in the recent COVID times itself, we experienced one of the candidate, which was a bad hire and who left us within 1 week. So the training cost, the onboarding cost, and the time spent by the recruiter as well as the HR fraternity in the company, as well as the technical team. All of the time wherein we say that time is money. So time initially is utilized for every candidate.
Yes.
Along with that, the work of the onboarding, the trainings which is scheduled. So all of these
Right.
make it to the cost.
Right, fair point. And I'll just summarize this into one flow. Starting from the effort and time that goes into the candidate selection, waiting for the candidate to join the notice period. After the candidate joins, realizing that this is a no-go, and bearing with the candidate for those amount of months before you let them go. Then starting the search again, and paying for the recruitment costs. As per US Department of Labor survey or a report, it, typically the bad hire of the cost of a bad hire is about 30% of candidates cost. So if you're getting someone say worth a 10 lakhs candidate, that means approximately 3 lakhs. If it's a 30 lakhs candidate, that's about 10 lakhs worth of that thing. And like you said, even if we imagine it, that's about 2 to 4 months of from waiting for the candidate to exiting the candidate, plus all the cost investment that goes in terms of the process. So that is basically the first thing. There's another hidden cost to it. If you have a bad hire, the team that has the bad hire, A, suffers a productivity loss, B, suffers from low morale, because the environment just becomes messy. And that is the other side of having a bad hire. And these two together is really painful for any organization, right? So one would imagine that a company would actually want to avoid this and put in a decent amount of investment into that thing. Suren, if we could move to the next slide.
Yes, sir.
Right. So between investing in candidate selection versus employee training, what do you feel a company does more of? Which side does it tend to invest more? So the typical costs, as per a study by I think Metal or something, that typical training budgets on an average about 40,000 per employee, right? And in most cases, the is even lesser. But that makes us wonder that suppose even if I talk about a candidate of 5 lakhs or 10 lakhs salary package, then that means that 30% cost, what we're talking about is about 1.5 to 3 lakhs. Suren, if you could keep
Yes, sir.
at the slide, please.
Yeah.
1.5 to 3 lakhs worth of damage can happen even at the junior most levels. So why won't companies invest more? Right. The possibilities too, and I'm just throwing out a hypothesis as to why not all companies invest more. Maybe not all companies have realized the cost of bad hires. B, they don't actually know how to do a good hire or how to invest in a right hire. So what we are going to talk about now is how do you invest in good candidate selection. So if you could move to the next slide.
Yes.
Right. So how do companies hire? What is it that they do typically? So if any of you could share in any of your companies, what is the typical hiring process?
How do
Girish, sir, please unmute, please, sir.
Yeah. Anyone who wants to share the inputs can temporarily unmute and then mute themselves. I think that just helps avoid background noise coming in.
Yes.
But I would want people to unmute as and when they have to share thoughts, and I would like to hear people's thoughts. 1 घंटे का monologue मुझसे होगा नहीं. So quick question: how do companies hire? What is the selection process at your companies? Sushant, Suren, you obviously facilitate hiring. What
Yes.
are the typical procedures or variations of processes that you guys have seen?
It's a, I mean, predominantly the current situation, people are, how do company hires? You mean to ask the process of hiring?
Yeah, process of hiring. What are all the rounds? What all do they do for hiring?
Correct. I'll tell you, sir. Majorly, all the FMCG sales-based organizations first took the HR interview, and after that they took the ASM interviews. After that, ASM rounds have been cleared. Then RSM interview, RSM, and then again go back to the VP sales. Sometimes, not always, but RSM usually close all the levels of the interviews. So this is how the hierarchy flows. And if I talk about the IT organization, so project leads or the tech leads of the organization took the interviews. And once they would clear the round, then CTO sometimes comes into the picture, or else the HR closes the same, or the head HR or the talent acquisition closes the same. This is how majorly it flows in the organizations, because we are working for diversified sectors. So this is the more or less the bigger picture which I have told you.
Right. So what
So,
you talked
Girish,
about?
can I?
Yeah, bilkul. Please go ahead.
This side Ram Gopal, okay.
Hi,
So
Ram.
Girish, how do companies hire? And talk about company, there is a couple of, they probably do hire through the internal team and then go back and invest a cost in outsourcing. And probably when you talk about the internal team, there is a lot of cost, you're involved in portal cost. When you roll out an IJP, you have to give a referral cost.
Right.
These are the general cost when you look at in terms of the source, okay. When you look at in terms of how in interview processes, as is already mentioned, so I just add a couple of points. Probably go and do on technology hiring. We do a lot of the coder pair hiring, hacker rank, test. Those are also cost involved, am I right? We do a video interviews. Probably have to procure them. A lot of online and virtual interviews. Those are also cost, okay. When you arrange an interview with the technical panel and technical lead, so the lead and whoever working on a project, okay, so they also have their own, they have to take out their timing from the their technical work, and they have to spend the time on interviews also. So there also it is an, they have to manage it, am I right? Somehow it is a loss for the project also what those managing. So these are all costs. So I can't able to calculate and probably give an accurate, but these are the costs involved while you do on companies hiring.
Yeah, very valid point. So you've shared both the costs and the process, and in tandem with Sushant. So basically, there are multiple rounds of interviews. On the tech side, there are various other tools like HackerRank, CodeFire. All of these are also used for that. Sushant, let me just ask,
Yes, sir.
do companies share back feedback with you when a candidate is rejected, or if a candidate turns out to be a bad hire later? Do they share feedback with you?
Sir, to be honest with you, if I talk about the sales-based organization, let me work for the majorly all the FMCG and consumer durable companies and the cement companies in India, right? We are working with the top companies, Fortune 500 companies. So they rarely share the feedback of the reject reason you are talking about, right? बहुत कम आता है, sir. Very rare. It is used to come. But IT companies has to give us they used to give us the feedback. Let's say they are hiring for front-end developer for the React.js or any other skill set. So they give us the feedback where the guy was missing in which skill set, because there are the multiple skill set in the sub skill sets, major. So they used to give us the feedback, but FMCG, consumer durable and sales-based organization, very rarely they give us the feedback.
Fair enough. So if we look at where could a candidate fail, that or a hire turn into a bad hire, there are two aspects. One is aptitude, which is technical know-how, कि काम के बारे में काम आता है कि नहीं. And the second is attitude.
Yes.
Whether the person has the right competencies, right mindset, right cultural fit. These are the two buckets. And like you said, the tech. Whenever you get feedback, you possibly be getting more feedback when they're being judged on the technical parts. But very rarely do companies are able to give or share feedback with certainty that where we rejected a candidate or where a candidate turned out a bad hire on a cultural or a behavioral or the attitude part. And that again brings us back to the point that when they were doing the candidate selection, were they sure of what were they looking for and were they assessing for it, right? Suren, if you could move on to the next slide.
Yes, sir.
I want to add one more point,
Yeah,
Giri.
sure.
It's my personal opinion as a consultant. Again, sometimes some profiles are so niche and a leadership hiring or a different role has been created by an organization. where the HR itself do not aware what they want to hire. You know? And later on, when they took some 3, 4, 5 profiles, then they came to know, no, we do not want that, we want that. So there's sometimes re-strategizing their policies, re-strategizing their recruitment process. I mean,
right. Fair enough. So this is a study, and it's a very popular study for people who study selection methods.
Yes,
It's
sir.
called the Schmidt and Hunter study on the predictive validity of overall job performance.
Yes.
And it lists out various measures of selecting people and the validity of those. So the topmost ranking is called the general mental ability test, which is and I'll cover some of these on the next slides, which is basically saying what is if I give a simple problem to someone, what is their relative ability to solve it.
Okay.
Right? As simple as that. And that has the highest validity on overall job performance. Right. And then there are work sample tests, integrity tests, consciousness tests. What we tend to see is, and even in interviews, there are actually two kinds of interviews: structured interviews and unstructured interviews. Now, 90% of the organizations, what do they typically end up doing is they have multiple rounds of unstructured interviews, which has a predictive validity of only 0.38. Right. So it can only in 40% of the cases give a good result. Broadly speaking, in layman terms, that is what it converts into. So that's how certain you can be that if I'm doing unstructured interviews, even multiple rounds, what will I get? And there's this next column, which is the multiple R. So multiple R says, if we combine the general mental ability test with any other measure, what is now the predictive validity of the other test? And then we see that these top 3 or 4 work sample tests, integrity tests, employment interview, structured, are all above 60%. Right? It's as simple as this, that if we want to increase our ability to hire better, be more sure that we are going to get to the right candidate, this is what we need to do.
Okay.
So now let's look at in detail some of these top 3 or 4. I will not be taking about integrity and consciousness tests, but I'll be talking about a couple of the other ones. Yes, Ray, next slide, please. The general mental ability test. As simple as this, if you could read the question, a cuboid has 6 sides of different colors. The red side is opposite to black, the blue is adjacent to white, the brown is adjacent to blue, the red side is face down. Which one of the following would be opposite to brown? And this is a simple mental ability test. The reason I chose this question is because you'll realize that it does not require any particular qualification. It does not tell you that this can be applied only to a junior level person or a senior level person. It is actually valid across levels. These kind of questions are available by the dime. So it's not even a big investment. And this is the kind of questions that has the highest predictability of success. Because if people can solve general problems and have the right technical knowledge, then they are going to turn out to be a good hire for you to a certain extent. I'll come to the cultural part and the behavioral part, but from a technical part, if they had the right technical know-how, which means they know their stuff and have a good general mental ability, right? The chances of them turning out to be a good hire is more than 60%. Now this box at the lower end of the screen, why have I kept that? Because since companies are not doing it, let's see what will it take to do this. The investment cost of a general mental ability test is actually pretty low. These are available by the time, because these kind of questions are easy to create. Anyone can create them. So there are so many of them available. They are enough available for free. They are enough available as paid tests. So if you go to Metal or something, enough of them available, and because there is no particular technical skill set involved in this, the cost of is also low. The levels it is valid for across from junior to senior, and this has the highest predictability. Add this one tool to any of your current assessment processes, and you're sure to cross the 60% limit. Right. Now let's move on to the next one. Work sample. Now, we've discussed that general mental ability to ho gaya, but technical aptitude hai ki nahi hai. How will the person respond in a particular work scenario? How do we find that out? Now, there are various ways of doing it. There's a simulation of an event. There's a low fidelity simulation. There are work samples. I'll tell you, I had at one point of time, and I'll share some beautiful anecdotes. Applied for, I think, TA5, Teach for India, or Teach for All, probably. I think Teach for All tha. And they sent me a work Excel that, this is a sample. What we want you to do is answer these couple of questions based on the data set that we're sharing. Simple work sample test. They would have shared it with all the candidates. When I saw the test, I realized the beauty of it. It tested you on your Excel skills. It tested you on your ability to generate insights. It tested you to ability to understand concepts. So it had data around their various, recruitment campaigns. Actually, recruitment as in student campaigns for every semester when they have students joining in. Data from various team members, who was doing high, low, etc. And what was needed was to analyze and figure out how would you redistribute work portfolios, where would you want to put in more resources, which people needed stretching. It tested all of that. It tested my know-how of Excel. It tested my understanding of concept. It tested my understanding of generating insights and giving recommendations. That is a work sample, right? Simulation of an event or low fidelity simulations give you work scenarios, and sometimes it leaves it open-ended for you to respond. In other cases, it gives you various responses, and you have to choose the response. The response is not necessarily right or wrong, because if it's a right or wrong, most people will be able to select it. What is called the politically right answer. Most of them have different approaches to coming to the solutions, and the answer only reflects the kind of approach you take, right? This is a very good way. I remember another place I'd gone to a startup. This was an edutech startup, and there we were discussing a work problem. And unlike the Excel thing, this was more of a qualitative. So they was talking about some of their project managers and the challenges that they were facing with their teams, right? And the interview was actually discussed around how would I approach that, and what kind of recommendations, what would I do, what kind of interventions would I think in. This is another kind of a work sample test. Now the challenges with this is that the investment can be low to high. Why low and where high? Typically, for example, in tech, like we've got HackerRank, etc. In tech, there's standardized tools available. For sales, I'm not very sure, although I think people have started developing tools around these, but they may not be that commonly available, or they may not be contextual to your industry or kind of that thing. And there you'll actually have to invest time in creating work samples for every role that you have. Not every incumbent that you have, but for every role. So if you have a ASM kind of a role, you'll need to create a work sample test. If you have a feet on street sales guy kind of a role, you'll have to create a different work sample. If you create a high level that thing, you'll have to create a work sample. And the problem with work samples is that once a set of people have given it, the chances is that people will start sharing those questions on the net increases. That means you'll have to constantly reinvest in this. And that is why the investment cost is low to high. But the levels it is valid for is again junior, mid, and senior. although, and that, like I said, the reason is because for each role that you hire, it's a different kind of, for example, the same even in IT of junior level coder versus a IT architect, for the same kind of problem will be given different work samples, because an architect will need to do the design, whereas from a coder you'll ask basic questions in terms of if you're stuck at this, how would you design the code of this module, what will you do. Any questions, any queries so far? Okay, let's move on, Surin. Now comes structured interviews. Now structured interviews are a very interesting concept. And this is probably the most interesting area, is because interviews to sare log karte hain. All companies with all kinds of assessment procedures definitely have interviews in their assessment procedures. GMA हो ना हो, work sample हो ना हो, interview सभी होते, but most of them follow unstructured interviews. Companies like Facebook, Amazon, Google all structured interviews, but most of our organizations typically do unstructured interviews. What are job traits for this role? Both technical, that to assess these job traits, what are the questions that we're going to ask, and then how will we assess? So based on what are the possible kinds of responses we expect, will be the scoring system. So there are three parts of a structured interview even before the interview starts. The first is to assess the job traits required for the role. The second is to create questions for those job traits, and the third is, once you've created those questions, my voice is not coming clear. Just give me a second. Let me try switch my network.
Sir, it's clear, I think.
Okay. Okay.
हाँ, अभी के लिए बीच में थोड़ा हो गया था, अभी clear है, एकदम clear है.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
So, right. So the third part is as creating the standardized scoring system. Now, just look back at our organizations and see how many of who first of all does this. Do we give it to the HR recruiter to do? Do we give it to the line manager to do? Most companies will fail the first itself, which is identifying the job traits related to a role. The second will be creating the questions related to that job traits. Most will not have defined questions for that. The third, asking candidates the same questions. In most cases, interviewers end up asking different questions to the different candidates for the same role. And fourth, how many actually have a standardized scoring system? Right. So if we don't have this, then the chances of us assessing the interviewers or the candidates wrong increases. It's as simple as that. If we do not invest, we will not get the returns. And this is, and as I would be speaking about the structured interviews, I'm sure you would have started thinking कि यार ये मेहनत का काम है. This is not an easy part for either the company to do or for the recruiters to do, and that's true. But now let's go back to the cost of a bad hire, 30% on an average, right? So are you willing to lose 3 lakhs on a 10 lakhs candidate, or are you willing to invest better? That's as simple as that, and that's why you see the investment cost is medium to high level. Again, that which is valid for junior, mid and senior. However, typically some of these structured interviews tend to take a longer amount of time, and which is why, for example, what Google and companies like Amazon do is that they split the traits that are being looked at between the different interviewers. So if you're going to have 4 rounds of interviewers, then each interviewer is given a different set of competencies or job traits to look at, whether it be technical or behavioral. Right. So if you're looking at say 9 competencies and they're going to be 3 rounds, so each interview is given 3, which means they'll ask those specific questions and not go about generically asking the same. A lot of companies, you'll see that across the 3 rounds, there's also the chance that all 3 end up asking about the same kind of stuff, and you're wondering यार कि पिछले वाले को भी तो यही बताया था, record कर लेते, right? And they share the notes from the previous round sometimes, or if what they do is they tend to calibrate at the end. Sometimes each round has a veto power, which means you could be rejected at each round. Right? This, in the most successful organizations, this is a standard part of interviewing. So then, if you could move to the next slide. Right. So continuing with structured interviews, I thought I'll also share some examples. I've done 2 questions as illustrations. One is about a behavioral, the other is about a technical. Tell me about a time you failed at a project. How did you try avoid failure? What did the experience teach you? If you also see in between, what is written in the brackets is the STAR frameworks. So basically, this is a behavioral event interview. That's the technical name for this. And this follows, there are various frameworks of BI also. This question follows the STAR framework: situation or task, action and result. What was the scenario that you faced? What did you do? And what was the outcome from there? Right? These are typically used to understand behavioral traits. This is also good check to a good double check on people fudging their skills. If someone has said, I did that project, if you ask them a BEI question around that, the chances are that if they did not do it, you will come to know, or what was their role in it. Sometimes people say, I did this. What they actually mean is that I was part of a team and I prepared a groundwork which was used by the team to come to a conclusion, which means the decision was taken by someone else. A BEI helps you elaborate that, which also means that it's a longer format thing. And for typically, so when I was in PropTiger, what we did was we split it into 2 kinds of formats. For junior level people, we did a quick BEI. And for a senior level people, we created a long form BI, which would go into 1.5 hours. Whereas for a junior level, we did what was a quick BI, because the more in number of incumbents you're going to have, the amount of investment you want to do is proportionally lesser. So that quick BI also was supposed to take at least 30 to 45 minutes per round, but it would follow this structure. The second kind of a question is, how would you explain the term capital structure to a non-finance manager? This is checking your technical know-how. Now look at the scale. The scale does not match any of the questions, by the way. This is for a craftsman. And that's why, look at the kind of attributes it's testing for: use of materials, aesthetics. But look at the scale defined. What you'll realize is that it actually estimates what kind of responses you'll get, and for what kind of response you'll say, oh, this is excellent, this is good, this is mixed, and this is poor. This is again an investment that companies typically do not make. The more we invest at this stage, the lesser the chances that we'll fail in getting a good candidate. Okay, next slide, please, Suren. Now, unstructured interviews. So this everyone is familiar with, right? You've all seen unstructured interviews. What are some of the pros and cons of unstructured interviews? You've seen the benefits of a structured interview. What are some of the pros and cons of having unstructured interviews? People, it's time for me to take a breather and for you to share your thoughts.
Guys, anyone have some questions? Please go ahead.
Or share your thoughts on this slide. What are some of the pros and cons of unstructured interviews? Unstructured interviews are where interview just asks whatever comes into their mind, where they feel, I know the best, I hire the best candidates. what are kind of questions they ask? What are the advantages or disadvantages of some of this question? Okay, I'll start off. One is biases.
Our audience only wants to listen you, Girish.
May I
yeah,
give a small
yeah,
input?
please. Yes, please.
Yeah. So when we talk about the unstructured interviews, the pros would be that we can just go on checking with the skills or how the answers are given by the candidate. So it is usually driven from the candidate's answers.
Right.
And we don't typically judge the overall scenario or the overall requirement of the role. And this falls into the cons part of that, wherein we get to understand the candidate from his own perspective rather than what the requirement of the role exactly is.
Right. Fairly on point, Sanjana. Thank you so much. Anyone else?
Girish, this side again, Ram Gopal. Can I? Yeah. So when you talk about unstructured, so a couple of things is when I say it is an advantage, you can ask a lot of challenges, probably. So just give an example, probably someone is doing a Java, okay? When you go have a structured question, you can have an, I'm talking about technology, you can take a non-tech sites also. You can have a particular question asking on structure side. Whenever non-structured thing, you can go back and add certain things also, what you implement in different projects, what are the thoughts on it, how you have given those solutions. You can get, if you're putting this candidate in different challenges, you'll understand whether the candidate will able to take it through on that project or not. I mean, this is in certain attributes you can go across when you ask you on structure. When I talk about cons, there is a biasness, am I right? There is a perception, okay? I have seen same candidate hasn't worked on a same project for the same organization. Out of 5 candidates, only 1 candidate is getting selected. So it all depends upon how perceptive, how when the person is taking an interview. So what is the perception? So sometimes the candidate is getting on, selected on the basis of perception of interview.
Right.
Fair point.
Yes, Sanjana, Ram Gopal, thank you so much. This was, you covered almost everything. So I'll just summarize what Sanjana and Ram Gopal shared. One is, if when we're doing an unstructured interview, it's an open slate to the candidate. So it, creates the possibility of uncovering unknowns. Stuff like, if you're hiring for Java, and while talking about Java, the person talks about how he created a binary tree and his knowledge of trees and sorting. And you realize that this guy, in addition to Java, has an understanding of sorting and searching, and is fairly good at it. And that's an additional skill which you weren't typically looking at. But just because the plate was open and that person brought it up, it came up. So the chances of unknowns coming up in unstructured interviews are higher. Right. The cons are plenty. One, like Ram Gopal said, 2 people working on the same project, both interviewed, one was rejected, one was hired. Right. The various things can come up, biases can come up. You could have, you may not have asked the same set of questions to both people, and hence the kind of responses varied. You may have asked irrelevant questions. That's a particular thing. People tend to ask questions which, for example, what are your weaknesses, right? Often half of the interviews end up asking this question. The question to ask back to an interviewer is, what are you going to do with the input you receive? Are you going to reject someone based on their weaknesses? Because if you're going to reject someone based on their weaknesses, they definitely are not going to share their weaknesses with you, right? So what is the kind of selection decision you're going to make based on weaknesses? The only reason to note down someone's weaknesses is to work out a development plan for them. And if you're going to do that, if that's going to be a part of that your process, then you should state upfront that this is not a selection question. It is that we're identifying your training needs as well as at this stage. Right. So these are the various kind. There's sometimes illegal questions. In India, the laws are still not so strict, but in abroad, you can't ask people. In some countries or states, you can't ask people their current salary. You can't ask them whether they're getting married or not married or having kids or planning to have kids. All those questions are deemed illegal. You can be sued if you ask any such questions. Right, from a best practices, that thing, it is not a question that you can ask. In India, those laws are still not strict, but it still opens up the when that the concept is valid, that we may be asking, irrelevant question, varied assessments, and illegal questions. So those are the cons of our structure. The biggest con are two. One is biases. People studied from my college. Okay, that's a favor. The person speaks confidently. Okay, that's another bias. Something he talks about a project that I'm looking for, so it gives me a familiarity bias, or something, a challenging situation that I've gone through in my life, so I can relate better to that person, whereas the other person I may not be able to relate better, and hence all these biases can be. I have a set of 9 competencies, both across technical and non-technical, that I need to interview for, but I asking or get stuck on one conversation and don't realize that I haven't asked questions for the 4 of the 9 competencies. And if I haven't noted, if I haven't asked questions, then I've definitely not assessed on them. So I'm hiring people on a assessment structure that wasn't there in the first place. So that's the challenge with unstructured. That is why we have so many bad hires. Right. The biggest problem in solving this is people feel that they're good interviewers. The biggest myth in this world is that most people think that they're good interviewers, and most people do unstructured interviewing. That is the biggest challenge that both the recruiter and the organization need to solve for, and that would and the biggest investment is that hiring managers, people who are going to do hiring, need to be trained for doing interviews, hiring interviews. You can't just throw someone in front of someone. People tend to try show off their egos and their knowledge when they're interviewing. दूसरे का समझने की जगह अपना ही बताना शुरू कर देते हैं, right? These are all the challenges that come. So a very big investment also for companies to make is investing in manager training. Okay, next slide, please, Suren.
Yes, sir.
So Girish, can I add on Ram again?
Yeah, please.
So just to add on in terms of the interview processes, I'll give you a couple of example. Some of the organizations do practices. Okay, they certify their interviewer. Okay, they do a certification. So probably if you're, some of the big IT consulting does. Okay, so if you're supposed to take an interviews initially, you have to sit in a shadow. Okay, shadow some interviewer. So there is some certification supposed to do. So if you are hiring some people or putting on different project, the perform doesn't perform, that will also impact in terms of your certifications. Okay. So even also you are a good interviewer and you also certified, if that is a bad hire, that will also impact, you won't able to take an interview or certain things. So these are the good processes and talk up, develop in terms of probably investing in terms of interview process.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. So at PropTiger, when we had introduced BEI, what we had done is from across the organization, the people who did most of the interviews, we did multiple workshops with them to take them through the BEI work, methodology. They were certified on BEI training. They did role plays during that. They understood the concept. They were well versed with it. We didn't just stop there, because we realized that people would forget the concept because it's not something that's part of their regular job. So what we did was, after the training, the first couple of interviews that we did, I or some of the HR team members actually shadowed them, sat with them in the meeting, took notes, told them what they were doing right, where they were missing out on the concept or the process, so that they could correct themselves. That is the kind of investment that's required to take that notch of hiring to the next level in an organization. Now coming on to new age technologies, fact or fact. What do I mean by new age technologies? A lot of companies are going in for automated CV screening. A lot of them are going in for facial recognition, voice or tonal recognition. And these technologies, promise to be able to give a good predictability of a hire more than a typical interviewer would. The challenge with these AI systems currently is the AI systems are based on the current ecosystem. What that means is that they learn from the past, and the past is a human past, right? So if a company was selecting or rejecting a particular set of CVs earlier, the AI algorithm tends to replicate that. And if there were any biases in that rejection being done by the organization, those biases carry forward by the AI. The voice or facial recognition technology. Facial recognition has the problem that most of that technology is suitable to a particular set of faces. Dark colored South Asian, African faces, it's the technology is yet not proven. It just doesn't work equally well. Tonality depends a lot, like we said, people with confidence tend to get selected or show higher score in manual interviews or human interviews. Similar biases get reflected when you have audio or tonal recognition, because it recognizes the confidence where the person is coming from, but that need not be a good indicator. If I start shaking in my interview, it might be because I'm nervous, right? It can happen, but the AI system will reject that candidate, or the chances of a rejection happening are higher with an AI system. A human interviewer could actually recognize that situation and try and calm the person down, but the AI system can't do that. So currently, these technologies and some companies, a lot of international FMCG companies are actually deploying these. This needs to be taken with a pinch of salt. Can't fully rely on these technologies just yet. Right. And with that, I'll now come to my last slide. Biggest pain point of both companies and recruiters: candidates fudging data. Right, I'm sure that's a problem that everyone's seen. I saw a video sometime, I think either on Instagram or Twitter or somewhere, I think it was on WhatsApp, and this guy was giving an interview, and he was actually lip syncing. His friend was speaking from the other side, and this guy was lip syncing, and he was doing it actually pretty well, till the time the guy asked a question which seemed to be out of the whack, and this guy started speaking first before the other guy started giving sound, and the interviewer noted that thing, the gap in sync. Fudging of data is probably one of the biggest problems. Background verifications also fail. um, Here there's no guaranteed solution yet, but blockchain technology holds a promise. Now, like anything, it comes with its pros and cons. There may be some parts of your career which you may not be proud of, which you don't want to highlight, but on blockchain, everything gets recorded. And if you start recording it, there's no way you can hide it. And there's no way you can delete something that's already there. So that's the challenge. The advantage of blockchain is that once certified, you don't have to recertify. Right now, every organization does its own BGV, right? Whereas all that needs to be done is whatever last BGV was there, the next set of BGV should only be the incremental BGV, right? So there's a potential. A lot of people are actually working on this problem, and we'll possibly see some startups being able to crack the solution, coming up with interesting solution points. Right. So in terms of slides, those are my slides. I would just want to add one more point for those who are from the recruitment side. I know Suren and Sushant definitely are. So I thought I'll just also share something that, because right now most of what I've spoken has been from the perspective of what an organization can do. Where is it that the recruiter community can help and increase their edge over other recruiters? At what parts of this? One is and where is that recruiters can invest more. So if you're hiring for a particular industry or a particular set of roles, if there's something that you do more of, invest more in learning about that work. Understand the value chain that goes. Understand how a sales rep does his work in pharma versus how what does a sales rep do in FMCG. I remember we were doing this project with Coca-Cola way back, I think 2008 or 9. And we understood. So Coke had two kinds of salespeople. One would be the person who would go take orders. There would be another person who would go after the order was delivered and clean up the fridge kept at the retailer's end. That's all that person was supposed to do. Stock ko theek se lagana. Because what Coca-Cola realized, that a fridge that looks appealing tends to sell more. When a person is standing at a grocery store, even if they have not come there to buy, but if the fridge is located correctly and it is tagged correctly, it tends to appeal to people and people start buying more of it. So they had a separate person doing that, right? These kind of nuances help you understand the company better. What are they looking for better? That kind of traits. Work with the company to understand what are the competencies that they're looking for. There are a lot of competency banks already available. There are a lot of assessments already available. A BI is something you can already pre-do with that thing. You can pre-verify your candidates by saying that, okay, I have done a BI, or me, we've done a couple of rounds of BIs, and maybe work with candidates and say, this will help you for your next round. We are doing pre-prep, and then you'll be able to write the right kind of recommendation letter that, instead of sharing you 20 profiles, we're going to share you only 10 profiles, but the probability of success will double and the investment you will have to make is lesser. So that is how recruiters can gain an edge over other recruiters, right? Right now, instead of just profiling CVs and saying this is a likely set of CVs to take forward, you should actually move to the next level and say these are the set of candidates you should move forward with. We've already done the first level of interviewing and sorting and searching and culling, and we feel these people will be a good fit for you, right? Ask for feedback and say, where did the candidate fail? Where in your procedure? Recommend to them that, if this is the process that you're following, why don't you also try doing a GMA? Or you start administering GMAs and say that all candidates, when we are sharing, are tested on this GMA. You can either make the candidate pay or you could invest in that, right? You guys are also earning between 4 to 12% on a candidate, right? So investment can be done at any point of time, and say that these guys are scoring high on GMA. Why don't you take them if the company itself is not doing the GMA? There are various ways of gaining advantage, right? So that was all that I had to share, folks. I've stuck to my time, barring 1 minute. So any questions, feel free to ask. I'm all available.
Guys, if you have any questions, please go ahead. We have to sum up the webinar. Do you have any queries?
Okay, my name is Sanjeev. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Sanjeev, go ahead.
Okay, actually you might see my...
Guys, please mute.
Hello?
Yeah. Sanjeev, go ahead.
Okay, so see, my question is that, we work in different...
Sanjeev, you'll have to wait a sec. I think there's another person who's, they're somehow managing to unmute themselves often. I think they're not realizing they're unmuting. Sanjeev, go ahead. I think we've been able to mute the person who was inadvertently, I think. Sasikala's Galaxy phone.
Sasikala, please unmute this.
You're, I think, inadvertently unmuting yourself on a side conversation. Could we request you to mute so that, great. Go ahead, Sanjeev.
Sanjeev, you are there?
Sanjeev, you'll have to unmute. Yes. Yes. Please go ahead.
Okay, so we have been, working, being in a recruitment and talent acquisition fraternity. I have seen, I worked with a BPO, and then I have worked with a QA testing firm, a startup, and then I have worked with the FMCG firm, Saudi based. And one more thing, and post that I did some freelancing and I worked for another BPO. Now I'm working for a edutech company called Digiversal.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm heading a talent acquisition team here.
Mhm.
Now, with my experience, I have seen that all businesses, the recruitment happens in India as per the business and the need. Okay. Now, my question to you is very simple that, a lot of convincing is also required for recruiters.
Yeah.
Because a company has a certain budget, If it is a startup, then they definitely work upon budgets, They restrict recruiters that, इतने package के अंदर ही चाहिए. This is the window we have.
Yeah.
Okay, now when we start screening, start working on it, how do you suggest to the recruitment fraternity? I might have my own answers, but I would like to hear it from you that a person who is coming from the 5 days working culture, okay, he is picking up a salary of 8 lakh per annum. Now, if you are bringing that person to 6 days working culture, because IT professionals, it's a big no from their side, so difficult to convince for 6 days. But the business need is such, So what do you suggest in this? It's a convincing part. So if you would be at my place or that specific recruiter's place, who would be actually asking a person to come on from 5 days to 6 days?
Yeah.
Obviously, I'll show the USP also that in 6 days what all he would get. Even you offer them a good package, even you have given them promotion, but out of hundreds, 80% of them get stuck only for 5 days. So how do you deal with this situation?
Fair enough. So there are actually a couple of higher level questions one needs to ask before actually getting into the transaction part of the question. One is, why do most people prefer a 5-day work week to 6-day work week? It's purely because of work-life balance. At a certain point of time, the returns on the remuneration are not good enough, or they look diminishing when we compare that to returns on the personal life. So I'm sure if you offered them double the salary, they would be agreeable to 6 lakhs. But to a certain extent, maybe a 20, 30, 40% hike, they'll say, yaar, I need my Saturday, Sunday off. I personally, rejected companies, which when I came to know that they were on 6-day week, I was like, from my personal choice, it doesn't justify. Unless you're paying me double, it definitely doesn't justify, and I'll still not, maybe double-minded on it. So what you're trying to solve is a personal choice kind of a question. It is not a money kind of a question. It's not कि कितने में मानेगा. वो question ही नहीं है. The question is कि what are people's personal life choices, right? So that is what you're solving for. The second question is, when we say our company's needs are 6 days a week, is it companies? So I'm not sure why the company's needs are 6 days a week, because it could be 5-day week on a rotating basis also. Right, you could employ someone for 5 days, and if you need someone working on Saturdays or Sundays, then you could say yeah, some people will get a Monday off or a Tuesday off or something, and you could have a 5-day week still. So I'm not sure why the company has that thing, and it could be a philosophical choice that the company has always operated on it, and for them to shift to from a 6 days to a 5 days would be a big challenge, especially because if you shift to a 5 days, you obviously can't cut people's salaries, right, and say yaar ek din kam kaam kara rahe hum ek din. So that is, that's another philosophical question. Reliance, I know, moved from 6 days to 5 days, and this was I think under Praveer Jha's time. So they did that, and I don't think they cut salaries, but not everyone has Reliance's budget. So I would suggest that it's a easily doable thing. Neither of these is easily doable. So the question is, what are the workarounds, right? So if so when you have this kind of a challenge, if you're not in a position to influence the business, right? One is, if one should not shut that door and see if we can influence the business. And you could have employees, some employees on 6 days of work week and some employees on 5 days of work week also. And the other people could be told, yeah, you're getting an extra salary for this. If you're willing to shift to 5 days a week, we are fine with that. It's just that this is the percentage we'll cut, and that's a standard rule, right? So you could play with that also. You need not have everyone on 6 days a week. So you could have some people on 5 days a week. The other is, if you necessarily need to hire for 6 days a week, start with looking at companies that already have 6 days a week. start with looking for people from small towns, right? Start with looking for people who are currently underpegged in terms of salaries, for whom salary actually currently matters more than nothing. If you you're trying to hire someone who's already comfortable, then the answer is going to be, I'm comfortable with on the money front. Okay, I want a 20%, 30% hike, but that's not my most defining need for hiring. Right? This has no simple transactional solution to it. What you'll need to do is try to change your catchment areas, which means you'll also need to try and figure out different avenues, because essentially what you're saying is that the typical 100 people that most companies search from are not anymore my catchment area. I need to shift my focus from these 100 to maybe 1,000, which are spread over a different part, or 100 spread over different catchment areas, and create a new catchment area. Because out of these 100 small towners, maybe only 20. So I need to find out where are the other small towners, who are the people who are currently underpegged, and from them I need to find out who have the right talent to grow up, right? So
Yeah.
that is how you'll probably be able to solve it. It's not going to be a direct kind of a solution.
Okay, thank you so much. And to
Sanjeev,
all,
why don't you share your views also? I think everyone would like to understand, because you are in the hot seat.
Okay, no, actually, I would like to say something, because I keep writing something or the other on LinkedIn. As per the experience, the challenges recruiters they face, these days.
Yeah.
So, the more challenging work are for those recruiters who are, working with consultancies and recruitment firms. Okay, and then here comes IT firms as well. They have their own recruitment team. Plus, they are hiring from outside. But the only thing which I would say I have learned, and I have tried to mold things in a better way, that one should have. A recruiter must have that capability, that he would actually go to the process manager and understand the JD face to face in depth, and ask that specific process owner, make his video, that what do you want from your what do you expect from your candidate, the joiner.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would actually say the gist, people candidate, they don't actually write, so I'm saying they don't read JD. If you talk about millennials, they
video JDs are a rising concept, and for that precise reason, that it is easier to see a 30-second video and understand what's the work about, rather than that. And you're right, if a company is directly not investing in it, then the recruiters can take the pain and say, yeah, we understand you, we'll help you create a video JD and we'll put it up, we'll give you better. These are all ways for recruiters to differentiate amongst the crowd. I receive maybe about 2 to 3 daily LinkedIn requests of recruitment consulting companies, and they all end up saying the same stuff. We are good at this. We will give you guaranteed results. Give us a chance. None of them say anything different, and they wonder why people don't respond back. Because if all of you are saying the same thing, then from my end, there's no differentiation. No.
Yes.
And the funny thing is, I'm not even into the recruitment space. I don't know why they reach out to me. But मेरे profile पे clearly लिखा है head of performance and rewards.
No, that's fine, because I would say that I would also suggest the fellow recruiters here that use LinkedIn wisely, build up network, and just don't randomly send requests and messages. Just go through the specific profiles which you are looking for. Get connected to your potentials, whether they are going to be candidates or your clients. So that's what I have to say right now.
Thanks for sharing, Sanjeev.
Yeah. But thank you so much. Thanks for your answers also. I appreciate it.
Hi Aditya, Sushant this side.
I think he's using a different ID. He's logged in from Aditya. His name is Sanjeev.
No, actually, when I'm working from home, so my Zoom automatically takes my son's name, which is on the Wi-Fi, So that's what the challenge I face,
Sorry. I thought Aditya is there. No problem.
Yeah.
So Sanjeev, I mean, you rightly said people are not using LinkedIn. People are not using wisely these days. I used to saw lot so many openings which are very irrelevant just to have a gathering of the followers, fan following, whatever you say. मतलब likes उस पे ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा आए. मतलब मेरे दोस्त ने
Yes.
जॉब छोड़ दी है, वो कोविड हो गया था, फलाना हो गया था. अरे this is not a platform to give your grievances over here.
Actually लोगों ने LinkedIn को Facebook की तरह यूज करना शुरू किया.
Correct. Very right.
वो कुछ भी मतलब कुछ भी डालना है और लाइक्स लेने हैं, कमेंट लेने हैं खाली. लोग इस तरह से करते हैं.
It's a beautiful platform. मतलब I mean, it's a beautiful professional platform which I have ever seen so far. I mean.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I mean, people are doing all these things these days, but yes, using LinkedIn wisely is something, you get connected to your own business area only,
Correct.
Don't go beyond that.
Correct.
And also, because see, the last post which I have shared, I've clearly mentioned at the end of it that LinkedIn should thank all of us, so that because they are gathering a free content, a huge and free content. So that's what we do actually, so sharing knowledge. My idea is that I have learned everything from this world, and I'm going to go someday, so it's better that you return back something to the world. So that's the whole idea.
Yes. Thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you so much.
Right, thanks.
Thank you.
Guys, if you have any other question, please.
Thank you, Grace. This is Sundar. There is no question as such, but thank you so much for the wonderful insights on competency-based interviewing. And I can relate it when we were driving to incorporate this in our company where I'm working, and it definitely takes a lot of efforts, as you rightly mentioned. And the beauty of this concept is, even if you give the list of questions to the candidate in advance, but if you have a right kind of probing questions, if you have a right kind of probing question set, you can definitely, make it out what you want. So thank you so much for sharing your insights. It was a wonderful session.
Pleasure, Sundar.
Thank you, Sundar. Thank you,
Thank you, Sundar, sir. Thank you.
Girish Sundar just is he is one of our mentor. We used to learn things from Sundar. Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you, Susanji.
Pleasure, Sundar.
Thank you, Sundar, sir.
So, is there any question, please?
I think
on chat box, or
we can wind up
directly. So, Girish sir, I would like to say thank you for your time, for your insights here, जो आपने share किया, and again, everyone who is participating in this webinar, we are really thanks to you who is attending this webinar, and I would like to say our next webinar is on 12th September, and by Mr. Manish Shekhar. And Mr. Manish Shekhar is a DGM HR in JK Lakshmi Cement, and he will guide us on talent management. I would like to request you join us on 12th September to everyone who is participating here. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Girish, sir.
Thanks, Suren. Thanks,
Thank you so much, sir, for your time, sir.
Thank you for your time once again.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye, sir.